go. NHL Today, right here on SportsGrid, our weekly look around the National Hockey League. Great to have everybody with us here today. Mike Carver with you. And look, it's been a couple of weeks since we've had a full slate of games to go through on NHL Today. I was out last week. Nice job by Joe Madden filling in and getting the job done. And now we're back. 2-week break is over. We're into the swing of things. I wish the NHL could figure out the right amount of games to play every night. 10 one night, 3 another night, 12 one night, 2 another night. But hey, that's okay. Friday night, we've got 3 games tonight that we are going to go through. We are 1 week away also from the NHL trade deadline. So that could shake some things up between now and next week. We have a lot of teams kind of sitting there on the bubble trying to chase down some of these playoff spots. Will they be sellers? Will they be buyers? A lot to be determined here as we get a little closer to the end. So we got a lot to do today. We're going to have Tom Vecchio with us later on. We'll get some plays from him for tonight on the 3-game slate. We'll give you the final 5 later on, as we always do as well. Let's start things off. Last night was a heavy slate. Big dose of hockey that we have to go through. The first game I'm going to talk about that shocked me was the Islanders were like a small favorite in Boston last night, and they won the game 2-1. Sorokin was great. These are two teams, surprisingly, I don't like that the Islanders are winning these games because it means they're probably not going to do what they should do, which is rip it down to the studs and get rid of guys like Nelson and Palmieri. Good players, but guys that the Islanders could get something for right now. Problem is they keep winning games like this. Last night in Boston, 2-1, and Boston's been awful. There's been talk about would they maybe trade Marchand. I don't think Marchand obviously wants to go anywhere. But two teams way outside now in the Eastern Conference. Nice win for the Islanders. Stunning to me. They never play well there for them to get that win. Canadians in the mix. They beat the Sharks 4-3 in overtime. They were down 3-2 in this game going into the third period. We were talking about it on the radio show Thursday night. I hope that you jumped in on Montreal Live as they did get the win 4-3. They were laying some very heavy lumber in that game, but they were able to pull it off. Tampa with a 3-0 win against Calgary. That game was at home. So Tampa now putting themselves in some pretty good position. They are now, I think it's 6 points clear of Detroit for that third spot. And you might get yourself another. We've had a lot of them. Toronto, Tampa Bay. But Toronto's breathing down Florida's neck for the first spot in that Atlantic division. So nothing is decided there. And, Tampa at this point, they're only 3 points back of Florida for first place in the Atlantic division. So we do have quite a few games to go to get to the end. Speaking of Florida, they do win 4-3 over the Oilers at home. The rematch of that great Stanley Cup final a year ago. They played a hell of a game in Edmonton a few months back. Another good one over the total, too, which we always love, over 6.5. A win for the Panthers 4-3. Blues beat the Caps 5-2, and this one you could almost smell during the day. The line was moving in one direction. Why is it going this way? The Blues stink. Caps best team in the Metro. Ovi chasing the record, and sure enough, 5-2 win for St. Louis. Caps tied this game at 2 late in the second period, and then proceeded to give up 2 goals in a 30-second span, and they were finished after that. Blues took it 4-2. They got an empty netter later. They got you to the 5. Penguins beat the Flyers 5-4. In overtime last night. Both of these teams, obviously, look, the Flyers have played a little bit better. They're still kind of in this jargon of all these teams. Penguins are kind of finished, but they did get the Malkin overtime winner last night to get themselves a victory. They split that home and home with the Flyers. Also last night, Canes 5-2 over the Sabres, and that was a Hartford Whaler night down in Carolina. I always love when the Carolina Hurricanes like to rub it in the face of the good people of Hartford that they stole their team and wear their beautiful jersey and they play the brass bonanza and they act like that. I mean, geez, I just run them over with a truck, why don't you? And it kills those people in Hartford that they don't have the whale anymore. And then every now once a year, these people in Carolina got to go and sell all those jerseys. Bothers the hell out of me, as you can tell. Predators beat Winnipeg, so the Jets' 11-game winning streak snapped against the Preds, who've had a very tough year. Had a little moment last night. Utah throttled Minnesota last night, 6-1. Huge win for them. And Utah now just 2 points back of Vancouver for the second wild card in the Western Conference. That's pretty tight. Vancouver's got 65 points. Talk about them in a moment. Calgary 64, Utah 63, St. Louis 62. And I guess if you want to, the Ducks got a heartbeat six back at 59. So very tight for that last spot. I don't think anybody will get to any of the other teams. I think the other 7 teams in the West are pretty set. Won't fall back unless they completely collapse. Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota, Vegas, Edmonton, LA, and Colorado. But that last spot, you're going to have a lot of teams that are going to be jockeying for it as they come down. You see the Western Conference odds there with Edmonton being plus 270 now. And Winnipeg, who I'm going to talk about later, despite the loss last night, they are starting to suck me in as a team that maybe this is the year that they can get through their first-round problems with Hellebuck, have a big performance, maybe get themselves to a Western Conference final, to a Stanley Cup final, as you see them a little bit further down the board on that one. Vegas beat Chicago 7-5 last night. They jumped them from the start, let the Blackhawks kind of get back in a little bit, but Vegas did cover the puck. I mean, that was some heavy lumber. They were -4 Bills last night, and they're able to cash for you. And the Ducks beat the Canucks 5-2. So the Canucks get the win in L.A., a very tough place to win. L.A. 19-3-3 at home this year. And then Vancouver goes down the freeway to the Duck Pond, and they lose 5-2. Big, I think they were up 2-0 in that game also, and the Ducks scored 5 unanswered. Vancouver's now lost 6 of 7 on the second half of back-to-back. So keep that in mind if you see Vancouver on a second night moving forward. And the last game I wanted to talk about from last night, because it transitions into something else that we are going to do, was Columbus beating Detroit 5-2 in Detroit last night. Now, the significance here, obviously, is, these two teams now are the first and second wild card spots, and they've actually both got a small amount of breathing room. They're both got 4 points separating themselves and the Rangers and Ottawa and Boston, who are all sitting there with 62. Montreal's got 61, Flyers got 60, Islanders got 59. That's kind of where the East lays. But they will play each other Saturday night in the Stadium Series game at the Horseshoe, Ohio Stadium, where they're expecting 90,000 plus to be in this game. Detroit's a slight favorite in it. Now, number of 5.5, I've seen some other books. FanDuel's got 5.5. I've seen some other books with 6.5s. I love this over tomorrow night. I think that the 4 of the last 5 outdoor games have gone over the number. Okay? I think that the conception that the outdoor games are sluggish, ice is bad, things like that, I think the NHL has cleaned up a lot of those things. And you look at some of the scores with these two playing each other. Columbus, one of the best over teams in the NHL this year. I think you're going to get a show over 5.5. I'm telling you, it's going to be 6.5 everywhere by the time you're an hour before puck drop on Saturday night. So I think today's the day to grab the 5.5 if you want to get involved in the over in Columbus and Detroit. And listen, we love the outdoor games. It's fun. It's a different feel. It's a long season, October all the way through to April, regular season. You need some things like this to kind of give you a little marker on the calendar. And seeing Detroit and Columbus play, and this Columbus team, they got a little something going right now. They have a little something going, a little magic carpet ride. So that's one to take a look at. All right, we have 3 games tonight. We're going to get into those as well. Toronto and the Rangers, Kings and Dallas, Minnesota and Colorado. We're going to get some plays from Tom on all 3 of these games. I have plays for you on all 3 of these games as well when we get into the Final 5 later in NHL Today. So we are here with you, of course, on a Friday. NHL Today, Mike Carver with you. We'll come back and we will get Tom Vecchio here from SportsGrid and get all of his action. Great to be back with you. No more 4 nations. We're into the stretch run. Trade deadline's a week away. Let's rock, baby. We're back after this.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks versus the top 3 teams in the league. Oklahoma City, Boston, Cleveland, 0-7. And you take out the 110-104 loss to Cleveland at home in October, and they lost by double digits every game. The Knicks will make the playoffs. Number 1, do they fix their defensive problems? And 2, are they actually healthy?
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Eagles got it done. If you back them, you're celebrating. Football season may be over, but the action never stops.
Are you ready for some baseball?
At SportsGrid, we're always in the game. We bring you 24/7 betting insights, expert picks, and real-time analysis. Next big play is already in motion. Are you ready? It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And we are back, NHL Today, right here on SportsGrid. Of course, our weekly look around the National Hockey League. Mike Carver here with you. Let's bring in now Tom Vecchio. Now, I haven't had Tom on NHL Today yet, but he's been on the show because I think he slipped past the goalie with Joe Madden last week when I was out on vacation. So Tom Vecchio, of course, you see all over SportsGrid here. Good to have him. Loves the pucks. Does a great job handicapping the NHL. Tom, good to see you, my man. Thanks for coming in for a few minutes here on NHL Today. Let's get right to it because I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to get your plays for tonight. I'm going to get some other things, but I want to start here because I was just talking about it. Stadium Series, Saturday night at the Horseshoe in Columbus for the Blue Jackets and the Red Wings, which is actually, I don't think people thought this when they announced the game last year. It's actually a hell of a game now that both teams are sitting in the 2 wildcard spots in the Eastern Conference. Let me get your thoughts in general on these outdoor games, because I think the feeling is they used to be a lot of unders, bad ice, things like that. But you take a look, Tom, 4 of the last 5 of these outdoor games, up, and away. We've had some overs in these things.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me to start. I'm already on the over, 5.5's out there. There's a little bit juice, -130, -140, wherever you might find it. I want to jump on that. And like you said, this is actually an awesome game, which is not what we were expecting dating back to last year when they announced it. Also, maybe a bit of an emotional game at the start. I assume that they're going to be honoring Johnny Gaudreau in some capacity out there. But 2 good offenses, 2 offenses that like to move the puck, that like to shoot. They have plenty of goal scorers on both sides. Also, 2 defenses that we're not particularly worried about on both sides. Like they clearly have their deficiencies. The Red Wings coming out of the break, blowing a 3-1 lead against the Wild, blowing a lead against the Ducks. Like, we're not worried about their defense really at any point over the past few seasons. So I am totally on board with the over. Also, players want to go out there and put on a bit of a show, just given the hype and the momentum that the NHL has and hockey has overall right now. So absolutely on board with the over.
Yeah, and I think they figured out, Tom, after all these years of doing all these outdoor games, I think they're in the high 30s now, between 35 and 40 outdoor games they've done since the first Winter Classic. I think they've figured out how to get the ice as close. Obviously, they'll never have it to a regular inside an arena level. But I think that they figured out how to replicate it as best they can. And I think that that's why you've also seen some of these games played at a little better pace. One more thing on Columbus, because one of the first futures we did on this show when I first started doing it a couple months ago was Columbus was on their first kind of big run this year. And I was like, man, plus 560 to make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Let's take a shot. You know, there are sometimes, Tom, things that are beyond numbers. We love numbers. We look at numbers with everything. That team has, with the Goudreau stuff, and a little bit of a magic carpet ride feel to it as we keep going here through this season.
Absolutely. I've said it many times across SportsGrid. Everyone should be rooting for the Blue Jackets this year. I said it coming into this season. I'm on Cole Caulfield, over 31.5 goals for the season. I said, there's plenty of stats to back up Cole Caulfield being a great player, but this a more of a vibes-based thing where he changed number to 13 to honor Johnny Gaudreau. So as great as stats are, there's something we just got to buy into it sometimes, and this is what we have with Columbus this year.
Tom, next thing for me, Hart Trophy. You know, sometimes these NHL awards, it could be interesting. A lot of them seems like get locked up very early. You see guys at minus 500, minus 1,000, it seems like the narrative gets put out there. You know, Hellebuck is going to win the Vezina again, et cetera, et cetera. Draisaitl's now the favorite for the Hart at minus 145. I got minus 155 there, 145, another stop. Hellebuck 2-1, McKinnon, everyone else kind of out and away. Man, Draisaitl kind of came up out of nowhere in this thing. He really wasn't in the picture for a few months, and he's kind of blasted ahead of everyone.
Yeah, no, it's going to be, I would say, not at that point where in terms of his odds every single night, McKinnon plays tonight. If he goes down, puts him another 3-4 points as he did the other night, those odds are going to shift again. I think it'll come down to the fact that Draisaitl's in position to win the Richard as well, the Rocket Richard for most goals. So if he's going to end up with 55, 60 some odd goals, he's going to be, I'm going to say, a step behind or half a step behind in terms of total points compared to McKinnon, but the goals will always be prominent for a lot of people. So if he's in position to win one award, he'll probably be in position to win another. So if you think McKinnon's going to go out there and put up another 3 points and they're just going to be juggling back and forth between the odds, wait until Draisaitl gets closer to even money and then maybe buy back in. But I wouldn't go to minus 155. The position to take now would be McKinnon, expecting him to put up 2 points every other night, basically.
Especially if you get a big Colorado surge here over the last 6 weeks of the season, and they get themselves back into that. Yeah, and all those things. I bellyache about the NHL schedule all the time, Tom. I do it. Gabe does it. I can't understand him sometimes. They were off for 2 weeks. They get a night with 12 games, then we'll play 2 games. We got a night with 9 games, then we're going to play 2 games. And now we're on one of those nights. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, all the games are 7, and there's they all go to break at the same time, and there's nothing for 20 minutes. They
just can't figure it out, Tom. They need one of us in the league office to tell them, this is what you need to do. Figure it out. Only 3 games tonight on a Friday. Leafs, Rangers, Kings, Stars, Wild, Avalanche. Give me some stuff for tonight.
Leafs, money line, Adam Fox is on IR, Keandre Miller may not play, JT Miller not play, Kreider may not play, et cetera, et cetera. The Leafs, we have all their concerns about the playoffs, but they still are a solid team overall, so I like their money line. Maybe a little sprinkle on the 60-minute money line as well. And then William Nylander for goal. He hasn't scored in a while. He's still an elite goal scorer. He was at plus 155 on DK. They have a 50% boost, so that jumps him up to plus 233 for a goal, which I think is just objectively a good price for a proven 30-40 goal scorer like Nylander. The shot volume hasn't been specifically there, but the Rangers, I can say this as a Rangers fan, the defensive inefficiencies have been terrible. And then let's turn to Colorado real quick. Val Nichushkin is back off of injury. This is the other day was his first game back since December 31st. Looking back to December, he had at least 2 shots on goal in 11 of the 13 games. He had 5 shots on goal the other night, so I like him over 2.5 shots on goal. The Wild have taken some serious steps back on defense since the start of January. They're bottom 10 in the league in Corsi against, which is total shot attempts allowed, and the Avs, as usual, top 10 league in terms of total shot attempts created. So the Avs are going to be making moves on offense. Val Nichushkin coming back is a big part of that. So him over 2.5 shots, which was plus 100.
Yeah, I think that the Wild are going to get smashed tonight, Tom. I think it's a bad spot for them. Back-to-back nights. They got worked in Utah last night. Now they got to go into Colorado and play the Avalanche, who've had a couple nights off after beating the Devils. That's usually a recipe for a nice bust-out game for the Colorado. Little 5-2 type of Colorado win tonight at home. Tom, tremendous job as always. We will see you again soon. Tom Vecchio here with us. NHL Today on SportsGrid. We will come back. We got a few more things to get through. I've got the final 5 before we get out of here. I'll give you my plays for tonight. I like that Nylander goal. I got another guy that we'll give you when we come back. NHL Today on the Grid. Back right after this.
Brady Tkachuk saying that if his brother did miss, that overtime period against Canada like we saw him do, it must be serious out there. And of course, Brady Tkachuk, not a doctor, but you've got to wonder the status of Matthew Tkachuk and what we're going to find out.
Game time for all of these teams and all these players that were, teammates. Now they're facing off against each other. Now they're back to being teammates, whatever it might be. Like, it's time to get things rolling back in the right direction.
HL today, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
And we are back, NHL today, right here on SportsGrid. Mike Carver here with you as we are into our Final Five segment. Great job by Tom Vecchio and his plays for tonight. Couple that I'm in on with him, and there's a couple that, yes, I'm going to go after him as well here at the end. First of all, 3 games tonight. I want to give you a couple things on these games. Number one, Toronto and the Rangers are at the Garden. Toronto's won 6 of their last 7. They're playing some good hockey. Both teams are coming off rivalry game wins. Toronto had the overtime win in Boston against the Bruins, the Marner overtimer, and the Rangers beat up on the Islanders 5-1 out at the horse track a couple days ago. So both teams coming in. We know the Rangers need this one badly. I told you Toronto's tracking down Florida right now at the top of the Atlantic Division. Toronto's won 4 of their last 6 against the Rangers as well. You see the Leafs are a favorite tonight at the Garden against the Blue Shirts, big total with the 6.5. The Kings are in Dallas against the Stars. The Stars have won 5 in a row against the Kings at home in Big D. The under is hit in 6 of the last 7 between these two. I love this under tonight at under 5.5. You usually see low-scoring game when they get together. Of course, 2 of the best teams in the Western Conference. And Minnesota and Colorado, you heard what I said with Tom. I think that Colorado is going to smash Minnesota tonight. They've won 5 of their last 6 against the Wild. I always look at travel situations like this. I probably make more of a bigger deal about it than most people do. Minnesota gets beat up in Utah last night. Looked awful. They got to play a back-to-back into Colorado. Avs are fresh. Last played Wednesday night against the Devils with the win. They're at home, haven't traveled. I love this spot for Colorado to score a whole bunch of goals against Minnesota. And that will bring us into our Final Five for this evening. Power play points, you know we like to have fun with that. I'm actually going with some brand names tonight for the power play points. I'm sticking with that Colorado game. I think Minnesota will be sloppy. I think that the Avs will have some opportunities with the extra man. So why not go with the 2 guys who are going to touch the puck the most on that Colorado power play? And that's Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. We're going to take both of them tonight, plus $1.30 for McKinnon, plus $1.70 for Makar. Have a little fun with their power play. Hope that they can get out there a lot. And I'm going to take Mitch Marner at plus 210, Toronto power play up against the Rangers. We know Fox is out. Rangers have had a couple problems defensively. Toronto power play, very good. So we'll take Marner plus 210, give a shot with him for the power play point tonight. As far as a goal goes, I had a couple of different places that I wanted to go tonight, and I love the Nylander look that Tom gave you. But I'm actually going to go with Jason Robertson from the Stars. Despite liking the under here tonight, plus 200 for Robertson. He's got 7 goals in his last 10 games, playing really well. I'm going to take 2. Nice price for Robertson, too, at plus 2 bills. So we're going to go with Robertson for the goal tonight. Next on the side, this is where I'm going to go against Tom. I know he likes the Maple Leafs tonight at the Garden. I'm actually going to take the Rangers tonight. Plus 104 on the money line. I think they get the win at the Garden. A little bit more desperation here for the Blue Shirts as we're coming down the stretch. I told you before, they're 6 points clear now. They need to get themselves working if they're going to get into one of those last wild card spots in the Eastern Conference. So give me the Rangers tonight in that. As far as the total goes, I think I've laid the map out pretty good. Over in Minnesota and Colorado, over to 5.5. I'm thinking Colorado can get there almost on their own tonight. 5 should do it for me. I would get 5-1 game, 4-2 game helps as well. But a 5.5 game with Colorado, I usually like to go and lean to the under, especially with a tired team on the second night of a back-to-back. And as far as the future this week, I've been waning back and forth, but I think I'm finally buying in. Second double-digit win streak of the season for Winnipeg. I know it ended last night in Nashville against the Predators, but they are still way down this Stanley Cup board. I mean, look, they got all these teams ahead of Winnipeg. Edmonton, Carolina, Florida, Dallas, Washington. 11-1 for the Winnipeg Jets. I know they've had their struggles. Hellebuck's had his struggles in the first round, but they will get the best matchup in the first round, and they will play that second wildcard team that we told you was fighting earlier. Then they will play, and look, everybody's got to play big teams in the West. I'll take my shot that Winnipeg's one of the last 4 in the West. Give me an opportunity to at least get them into the Western Conference Finals. I think that they're good enough. They've shown me enough that things break right, they can get to a Stanley Cup final this year. So I'm going to add Winnipeg to my portfolio for the future. It's 11-1 for them to win the Stanley Cup. Only going to get less when they lock up the 1 seed and things like that. So there you go. Final 5 for an NHL today here on a Friday. Lots of big games this weekend. Not just that Stadium Series game, but that's the one obviously everybody will keep their eyes on. Detroit and Columbus at the Horseshoe. Great job by Tom Vecchio. Great job by Tommy Reynolds and the crew. NHL Today, Mike Carver. We'll see you back here next week for the trade deadline. Look out.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We know the Knicks are talented. They're 37-20. It's not a bad season by any stretch. They're just not being the upper echelon team.
This is the Knicks team right now. They're a very good team. And I'm a Knicks fan. You can't look at there and say, this team can win a championship. They're not good enough. They're not good enough defensively. Are we the New York Knicks or are we the New York Fugazis? Forget about it.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Is that kind of helpful when it comes to preparing for a major? Is that you're just like 1 foot in front of you at this point?
Ideally come to a place here at Bay Hill where I've had good success in the past. I've only played it the last 21, 2, 3, and 4. But I've played it well, and I really liked it that we're heading there with where I'm at right now. I think it's going to tell me a lot.